Okay, so this particular um, month's session is about recent updates that we've done on the site. So we're going to go through three specific areas where we've made some changes. Some are small and some are a little bit larger. So the first change that we have is with our usage charts. Every teacher, whether you have admin access or not, you can access your school's usage by subject area. And we previously had a chart, and again, I'll show all of this on the live site in just a few minutes. We had a chart, we had a formula where tests were worth a certain number of points, practice activities were worth a certain number of points, and then we just added all of that up and showed it in the graph. But the question we ran into a lot is, well, how do I know, what part of this usage is coming from test and coming from practice? It didn't really show any of that information. So we've revamped it to where that formula no longer exists, and instead your usage is broken down so that you can see how many tests are completed, how many practice activities, games, and videos per subject area. And there's a key at the bottom. You can customize it by clicking on the key, which I'll show you how to do that. And just to give you a screenshot really quickly, here's an example where you can see, that we have pink, orange, yellow, and green to represent the different activities. And again, there's a key at the very bottom. And within that color, you can see the actual number. So that's not any kind of formula. It's just the total number of that type of activity that's been submitted for that subject. And then over on the far right, you have your total number of activities completed. And by default, the subject areas with the most usage will be at the very top, and then it's going to gradually go down in descending order for the subject areas that don't have as much usage. So that hopefully is a little bit clearer compared to what it used to look like, if you remember that. And again, I'll show you where you can find that in your account, because again, every teacher is able to see that, whether you're an admin or not. Then another change that we've made pretty recently is with your class progress report. The class progress report, if you're not familiar with it, is a great way to track how your class is doing across every single standard. You can see your class average. We have these color-coded dots. So it's just a lot of data there where you can track your class strength and weakness areas. And previously, we only based that data on test, benchmarks, and practice questions. But we kept getting a lot of requests for all the other different types of activities that can be assigned, which is obviously very understandable. So we added, where now vocabulary sets are factored in, performance tasks, puzzles, and videos are all factored in by default. So when you go to your class progress report, all those different types of activities will be checked by default, but you can always pick and choose exactly what you'd like to see. So when you're on your progress report page, you can click on the little gear icon over on the right, and you'll get this pop-up where you can filter the question source. So this is where you have the additional options compared to what you used to have in the past. So they're alphabetically listed, and you can just decide what you want to see. Now include retest scores. That one's at the bottom, just even though it's not alphabetical, it just doesn't fit with the others. So if you want to see retest scores included, again, that will be checked by default. And so there are your different options there. So if you only want to view how your students are doing on performance tasks, you can now view that data, whereas before you couldn't see that in the progress report view. So again, we'll take a look at that in just a minute. And then the most recent change just within the past couple weeks is with your assignments tab. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that happened with your assignments tab, which has resulted in a much quicker loading time. So in the past, you may have noticed that the assignments tab was really slow when you click to load it. So that should be noticeably faster now. We have better filters. We also in the past had it to where if you wanted to filter your assignments, maybe by class or by name, you didn't have the ability to hide the filter, so it's just kind of ugly because it was always there on the page, but you can now hide it. It's formatted. We also have a taken notification in settings to let you know that students have taken an assignment without having to click on the results. And I'll talk about why that's important when we get on the site. And then part of the reason that the page loads quicker is because it's not always pulling live results. So it will update every 15 minutes, but if you need your results sooner, let's say you go to assignments and you just had a student finish and you need to see what they've done, we have a little refresh icon where you can instantly retrieve the results up to that second. So here's a couple of examples. At the top, here's the screenshot of the filters. It just looks nicer, and you can also hide your filter when you don't want to view it. So that just makes the page look a little bit cleaner. And it's also formatted, and I'll talk about that when we get on the live site. And then here is the little new refresh icon next to completed. Because again, if you're looking at this and let's say you just had 5 students finish, it's not going to update in live time. It will eventually update later on, but if you wanted to see the results in live time, you could click the little icon and it's going to refresh it instantly for you. Here's the taken notification in the settings, so that is a change, and I'll talk about that in more detail when we get on the live site. And so now I do want to go ahead and jump over to the live site to show where these different things are, and then we'll have Q&A. And then also when you exit, I just didn't want to forget to mention this now, there is a 1-question survey. It's optional, but it would be appreciated if you could take just a minute and fill it in, not only for feedback about this webinar, but we offer these free training webinars every single month. So if there's a topic that you would like to see us offer, we would love to hear what that topic is, because we really want to try and tailor it to what teachers are wanting. So let us know if there's any topics. Again, if we offer it for a day and time that doesn't work for you, you can still sign up and register anyway, and we'll send you the recording and the information afterwards, even if you can't attend, because we know there's no way that we can reach every teacher for a time that is good for them with different schedules. All right, so let me go ahead and get over here now to the site. So I'm going to go in order of the presentation. So the first thing I want to quickly point out, we won't spend too much time on it, is the usage chart. So if you're on your teacher homepage, everyone has this account information link. And when you click account information, this is just going to give you a logins chart. You can always compare this year to last year. So that will break down your logins by month. But then down below that, you have here usage by test. And so this is what we recently changed. And so here, if you hover, you can see, there's 5 tests completed for this one, 6 practice activities, which would include practice questions, vocabulary, performance task. It includes all of those different things together. And then here's the videos. And if I scroll down, here's the key that I was talking about. And let's say you only really care about how many tests. So you can click on the key and it's going to remove those from your graph. And so now you're only looking at tests. And then again, you can add back whatever you want in. And so you can customize it to view it that way. But again, your most used subject areas will be listed at the top, and then they'll go down. And then if you have ones that don't have usage or have the same amount of usage, they're alphabetically ordered. So hopefully that makes a lot more sense compared to what it used to look like, and you can get a better sense of how your school is using each subject area and what exactly is being utilized within each one. All right, then the next change was the progress report. So let me go into a progress report here. Okay, so here's my class progress report. Again, it's helpful because I can see my class strengths and weaknesses with these color-coded dots over here on the right. And so by default, again, it's factoring in everything. And so this would include assignments that you've created, as well as anything that students have done on their own and they've chosen to report it to your class. So that gets factored in here as well. So if I click on the gear icon over here on the right, here I can see that everything is checked. So let's say I really only want to view performance tasks. So you would have to uncheck it and click to load. And I can see that this class hasn't done any performance task. So you can, again, narrow it down. So this time I'm going to choose practice questions and load. And so now I'm only viewing data for practice questions. So that way you can just narrow it down, to exactly what you want. Now, if you, let's say you have these 4 question sources checked. If you were to log out and log back in tomorrow and come back to this gear icon, everything is going to be checked again. So just keep that in mind, that it's not going to remember if you've customized it from, one day to the next. That might be something we look to add in the future. So just keep in mind, if you come back and you're like, wait, all the dots are different, it's because everything is factored in. So there's a chance that what you were looking at with a specific filter, it's no longer set the next day. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and go to the Assignments tab, which again, on your account, you should notice will load a lot quicker, especially for teachers if they had a lot of assignments or a lot of group assignments, because those take a while to load. So that was really bogging down this page for a lot of teachers. So now it doesn't look a whole lot different. One little change is that the deactivate and results buttons are switched. So just keep that in mind, that if you are used to clicking, over here for deactivate, it's just, it's just in the reverse order now. So a couple things. One is that you can click to filter assignments like you always have, but the filter itself just looks a lot cleaner on the page. And let's say you want to look at what you've assigned to this class. So I'm going to click go. I can see I don't have any assignments for that class. But let's say I accidentally closed, I'm hiding the filter, and I go somewhere else on the site. Like I do something in classes, or I do something in benchmarks, and I go back here and I'm like, wait, where'd all my assignments go? The reason that we have this filter assignments link formatted is so that you currently have a filter set. So that will remind you, oh, hey, I have a filter, and you can see that it's set to sample class. And so you can just reset the filter, and then it's no longer orange. That way, you're seeing everything. So if you do ever pick a filter, click go somewhere else on the site, and then come back here, it's going to let you know that you have a filter applied. And let me see if I can, let's see, I've filtered to last month, last 3 months. So here I only have 7 assignments. So again, if I go somewhere else and come back, I'm going to know that I have a filter set. So we just didn't want that to be a source of confusion for anyone. So hopefully that will make it easier to tell that you have a filter applied. Now, as far as the taken, let me reset this so I can get all of my assignments back. So when you go to the options menu for an assignment and go to settings, this is where you can change the start, the end date, who it's assigned to, all of that very easily. The problem we were seeing is that some teachers, when they came here, let's say you have to reset a student's assignment because they loaded it and then they submitted it too soon, or whatever the case may be. We had a lot of teachers who would come here and reset, and then they would uncheck everybody else because they were afraid it would reassign it to all of those students. Well, the problem is what happens when teachers did that is if the student had already done it, it would assign it to them again, and they'd have to, it would look like they hadn't done it. So it was just causing a lot of problems. So what we did to solve that is when you go to an assignment where students have done it, you can see taken for those students who have a result. So notice there's no checkbox. You cannot remove them from this assignment. So that way it takes care of that problem. You can still reset it for them if they had a problem, and then the taken will go away. And you can always unassign it to students who haven't done it yet. But just know if you ever make a change here, like the date or resetting, don't uncheck students unless you truly don't want them to have the assignment, because if you make a change here and save, it's not going to reassign it to your class. It will update whatever changes you made for that assignment. But the taken is also nice because you can quickly get a glance at who hasn't done it without having to actually go into your results. So that's kind of the background of why that was added, because again, teachers were removing students who had already completed the assignments and then having to add them back. And then the last thing that I mentioned is that this page will not update in real time. It will update about every 15 minutes or so. So if you have your class working and there's a result that a student says, they just submitted, but you're not seeing that, anybody's done it. Let's say it still says 0 out of 6, but your students are claiming they've already finished. All you have to do is click this little refresh icon, and then that's going to automatically update that number. Obviously, I don't have any changes here, but that will update that number for you, and then you can go in to view the results. So that's kind of the, again, solution if you need to see the results in real time. You can do it through there. And then overall, just this tab, if you ever needed to sort by the name of the assignment or the end date, it's going to go through all of the pages, which is an improvement, because in the past, if you were to filter by name or end date, it only looked at the page you were on, versus right now, it's going through all 3 pages to look at, the assignment. So if I, so here is my end date of 3/16/2017, and if I go, it's going to take me all the way to the end. So it does sort through every single page so you can find what you're looking for. And those were the main changes, again, to the assignments tab, just little things that will hopefully help make everyone's experience better, plus the much quicker loading time. So that's the end of what I wanted to go over, since we're at about 20 minutes, and I do want to kind of cap it off at 20 minutes just in case there are teachers who need to get back to class or their planning time. I'll be happy to stay around and see if there's any questions that come through. I haven't seen any yet, but if you have questions about anything, it doesn't have to be about one of the items we went over. It could be about anything on the site. Feel free to go ahead and ask those now. If you need to go ahead and log out, that's perfectly fine too. Just make sure that you take a minute to complete the survey. And again, just be on the lookout for an email from me later on this morning with the information in there. So again, thanks so much for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll hang around for a few more minutes. Okay, so I do see one question about, can we share tests that have been made by other teachers? We do have a sharing option for benchmarks and assignments. Benchmarks are typically what most teachers like to share, just because it is the exact same assessment that your department can use with the same questions. But only the teacher who creates the benchmark is the teacher who has the rights to share it. So if you click on the title of a benchmark, it will show you who the creator is. So that way, if it's one of your own, you can just go into settings for that benchmark, and then share benchmark is down here. And then once you save it, it's going to add a little pink S. That way you know it's now visible by any teacher at your school for, in this case, grade 8 mathematics EOG. So that's how we decide who it gets shared to. You don't pick and choose which teachers it gets shared to. It's just anyone who has a class particular subject. Now, if a benchmark shows up here and it's not one of your own and you're wondering how did it get here, again, just click on it, and now I can see that the creator here is someone different. And they've decided to share the benchmark, and I obviously have a class set up for this test, which is why I'm able to see it. So that's how you can share tests. Again, only the creator is the teacher who can make that decision. One question is there a way to change point values of multiple choice items on teacher-made benchmarks? Currently, there's not. When you make a benchmark, any question that's either a USA test prep question or a teacher-created question is worth just 1 point if it's multiple choice. The only place where you can decide if a question is worth more is if it's free response. But currently, no, there's not a way to customize multiple choice as far as how much it's worth. But you can turn a question into bonus in the very last step when you make a benchmark. Let me just go into one that I can edit really quickly. In the final preview step, there's the option over here to turn a question into bonus, so that you could always do with either a USA test prep question or a teacher created one. One question about shared benchmarks is about the results, which is a great question. If, let's say, I've shared this benchmark, when I go to the results, I'm only going to see my results. You're not going to see every other teacher's results in your school. The one exception is if you are an admin, you can go to your admin area, go to benchmarks, and here you can see every benchmark at the school, and you can view results for all teachers. But again, that's only for someone who has an admin account. If you don't have an admin account, then again, the only benchmark results you'll see are your own, even if the benchmark is shared. You'll still only see your own student results. There's a question about reviewing how to reassign or reset an assignment. So let me go back to the assignments tab. And I'm going to go to options and go to settings. So again, this is where you can see your classes who you've given this assignment to. If you need to reset an assignment for a student who's already taken it because they had a technical problem or they just loaded it and then immediately submitted without even taking it, all you have to do is click this reset attempt counter checkbox to the right of that student's name, and then save at the bottom. So here I'm going to reset it for Forrest Gump. So if I click save, I notice that the taken has been removed from Forrest Gump, so that means he can log in and he'll be able to take it again. For the students who have taken, the reason we have the checkbox removed is so that you can't remove them from the assignment, because that was just creating problems where the teacher would then not have the result and they'd have to reassign it, and the student would have it from the beginning, so it was just a mess. So that way, if the student's taken it, the only option is you could reset it for them if you need them to do it again. But again, any changes that you make here will not reassign it to your classes. So you can change the end date, 20 different times, and your students will only ever receive that assignment one time. They're not going to receive it with every single change that you make. Hopefully that clears it up. If not, please let me know. There's one question about classes. This teacher is asking, if you have your classes set up, can you create another and copy groups to the new class? Hopefully I'm understanding the question correctly. If not, let me know. But let's say you have your classes set up and you have to create a new class. You can add your new class to assignments that you already have. The easiest way to do that is just to go ahead and get your class set up. And then once you have all your students in the class, just come back here to the options menu and go to settings for the assignment that you want to add. and then you'll see the new class here, and you can just select that class, and then all the students will be checked, and you can save it. So that's the way I'd recommend. Again, if you need to set up a brand new class and add that class to assignments that already exist. So those are all the questions I see. Again, I'll be happy to stick around for a couple more minutes to see if any other questions come through. Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time. Actually, one just came through. Hang on one second. So this question is about if you have a new assignment, copying certain students from other classes to the new class. Again, I'm not entirely sure I understand. The site can get a little messy if you're trying to assign an assignment to students in different classes. Our site's not really designed to do that, to be able to assign it to the same students but in different classes. It's only going to assign it one time. Even if you were to check the student in both classes, it's not going to assign it to them twice. So it's pretty important that if you have a student who's in maybe two of your classes, for the purposes of USA Test Prep, I would only have them in one of your classes where you want to see their grades, because it just can create problems if they're in two different classes and you're trying to assign it to them in one class or in both classes, but you're only going to see the results in one and it may not be the one you want. So again, if you are able to do that, just try and have students in one of your classes, not both. If a student is moving from one class to another, we don't really have a true transfer tool that will transfer a student's grades and assignments to your new class. That's something that I think we're looking to add for the future. The only thing that can be transferred is a benchmark result, because when you go to your benchmark results, you have a lot of extra options in addition to an assignment, and one of those is to go to your individual students, and where it says class, you can click on the little pencil icon, and you can even switch the teacher, but you can switch it to a different class period if they've moved to a different class, but that's only if it's a benchmark. We don't have that same capability yet for an assignment. There's one question about, is there any way to get old standard tests we made in previous years? That's a tricky question. By default, we don't delete benchmarks. So like if I go to the last page in this account, you'll see there's benchmarks in 2013. So unless you delete a benchmark or you archive a benchmark and it gets old, your benchmarks will stay here. The one exception is if the test in your state has been changed to the point where we had to release a different version of that test review. In that case, the old test or the old standards will become deprecated in our system, and it's going to be phased out to where you can't use it. So it just depends on your particular state and test and what's been done. But if we've had to deprecate it on our end, then there's not a way, unfortunately, to save that benchmark. But if you have the same test from year to year and your state hasn't changed it, then again, your benchmarks will go as far back. Now, it's always a good idea, if you wanted to use a really, really old benchmark, I would always recommend duplicating it. And then what's going to happen is when you duplicate it, it's going to let you know that there's more than likely been some changes. So it tells me, there's questions that are no longer associated with that same content area or standard. Things have been shifted around because it's been, in this case, 4 years. So you would hopefully hope that we would clean things up on our end and make sure everything is good, because we do have periodic audits of all of our tests and questions to where things are moved around. And so then I have a chance to go through and see what questions have been moved around. They're highlighted in pink, or there might be questions that have been completely removed, and I might need to build this benchmark back up. But I do still have a template, of what this benchmark, looked like, several years ago. So those are, again, all the questions that I see right now. If you have a specific question, or maybe I didn't fully understand or answer your question, you can feel free to email me. I'm going to type my email in here. It's just shannon@usatestprep.com. But again, you'll get an email from me anyway later this morning with the recording and the presentation in case you need to share that out with anybody. So again, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to complete the survey if you have a minute, and just be on the lookout for the email from me later this morning. So thanks so much, and have a good day.